Every night when we go to sleep, we expect our body to shut down, to rest, and to heal. But for many people, that rest is interrupted. Waking up in the middle of the night, sometimes with a racing mind, other times with no explanation at all. What's often overlooked is that this isn't just a random occurrence or a failure of willpower or discipline. It's biology. It's hormones, more specifically. It's your body's finely tuned hormonal system trying to tell you something. Cortisol is often labeled as the stress hormone. But in reality, it's one of the most important regulatory chemicals in your body. It follows a very specific daily rhythm known as the diurnal cortisol pattern. Ideally, a cortisol should rise sharply within the first 30 to 60 minutes after waking. This is called the cortisol awakening response, and it plays a vital role in clearing out residual melatonin, increasing alertness, mobilizing energy, and setting your circadian clock for the day. When this rise happens at the right time and to the right extent, it not only boosts your energy during the day, but also helps prime your body for deep restorative sleep later that night. However, when this system gets disrupted, when cortisol peaks too early, too late, or stays elevated into the night, it begins to interfere with sleep in very real and measurable ways. People who find themselves waking up at 200 a.m. or 300 a.m. often blame anxiety, restlessness, or racing thoughts. And while those symptoms may be present, what's actually happening under the hood is often hormonal. When cortisol levels remain too high late into the evening, or if they spike in the early morning hours before the sun has even risen, they can interrupt the normal phases of sleep, particularly slow wave sleep and random. This isn't random. Cortisol naturally suppresses melatonin, so the hormone that helps us stay asleep. So when cortisol shows up too early, melatonin gets pushed down too soon, the resulting you wake up. This misalignment can stem from a variety of factors, many of which are lifestyle driven. One of the most common causes is inconsistent wake times. If you wake up at 600 a.m. on weekdays but sleep until 10,000 a.m. on weekends, you're throwing off your body's internal clock. What scientists call your circadian pacemaker, located in the suprachiasmatic nucleus of the hypothalamus. This clock regulates cortisol, melatonin, and countless other rhythms. Disrupt it regularly, and your cortisol no longer peaks when it should. The consequence isn't just grogginess during the day. It's a cascade of downstream effects, including night wakings, early morning anxiety, and fragmented sleep. Stress, unsurprisingly, is another major driver. A chronic psychological stress, especially the kind we carry into the evening, can cause your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal HPA axis to stay activated well past the time it should begin winding down. The HPA axis responsible for releasing cortisol. If it doesn't get the signal to quiet down in the evening, your cortisol levels won't fall. And when cortisol doesn't drop, your body remains in a heightened state of alertness. Even if you manage to fall asleep, that shallow sleep is prone to interruption. Your brain doesn't fully enter the deep, slow wave stages necessary for full physical recovery, and your REM sleep, the phase associated with emotional and memory processing gets cut short or delayed. It's also important to understand that cortisol doesn't work in isolation. It interacts with virtually every other system in the body. It influences and is influenced by insulin, melatonin, adrenaline, and even sex hormones like estrogen and testosterone. For instance, when cortisol is chronically high, it can interfere with insulin sensitivity, leading to unstable blood sugar, which can cause further hormonal spikes at night. This is why someone might wake up not just wired, but also hungry, sweaty, or with a pounding heart. All signs that cortisol has kicked in prematurely. Certain behaviors inadvertently train your body to misfire cortisol. One example is intense exercise late in the evening. While physical activity is a potent modulator of cortisol and highly beneficial during the day, doing a high-intensity workout close to bedtime can spike cortisol and delay the onset of melatonin. The brain interprets this late surge in adrenaline and cortisol as a cue that it's still daytime. Your system becomes wired instead of relaxed, and this delayed cortisol rhythm can repeat night after night, slowly shifting your circadian cycle out of alignment. This eventually leads to early morning awakenings, difficulty falling asleep, or both. Caffeine also plays a subtle but significant role. Its half-life is around 5 to 6 hours, meaning that a cup of coffee consumed at 300 p.m. could still be exerting effects at 900 p.m., or even later. Caffeine works by blocking adenosine receptors in the brain, temporarily suppressing the buildup of sleep pressure. This may delay the natural onset of cortisol the next morning, leading to a blunted awakening response. When that happens, the body may try to compensate by releasing cortisol too early the next day, leading to an erratic rhythm that eventually manifests as poor sleep quality and night wakings. To rebalance this system, you don't need to rely on guesswork. There are concrete, science-backed steps that signal your body to regulate cortisol properly. The most powerful lever is morning sunlight. When you get sunlight into your eyes within 30 to 60 minutes of waking, ideally without sunglasses and without windows filtering the light, you send a strong, time-stamped signal to your brain. It's morning now. This stimulates the release of cortisol at the right time, and that timing anchors your entire circadian rhythm mechanism, including when melatonin will be released at night. It's like pressing start on your biological clock. Equally important is avoiding bright artificial light, especially overhead LEDs and blue light from screens late in the evening. Exposure to this kind of light can trick the brain into thinking it's still daytime, which can delay the natural drop in cortisol and suppress melatonin production. This miscommunication leads to poor sleep onset and fragmented sleep. Using dim lighting, red tone bulbs, or blue light blocking glasses in the evening can help correct this. Another powerful modulator is stress management. This doesn't mean eliminating all stress. It means strategically downshifting the nervous system before bed. Practices like NSDR, non-sleep deep rest, yoga nidra, or slow-paced breathing at night can help lower cortisol levels. These tools work by activating the parasympathetic nervous system, which tells the HPA axis it's safe to shut down for the night. When used consistently, these practices can retrain your body to adopt a healthier cortisol rhythm, one that supports, not sabotages, your sleep. In sum, your nighttime awakenings are not a mystery. They are a message, biological signal that your internal rhythms are out of sync. By learning how and when cortisol should rise and fall, and by implementing habits that support its natural pattern, you can reclaim not only your sleep, but also your energy, your mood, and your clarity. This isn't about fighting your biology. It's about working with it. When cortisol peaks at the right time, your entire system flows more smoothly. And that's when you stop waking up in the night and start waking up in the morning feeling like yourself again. Light is not just something we see with our eyes. It's the most powerful external factor that regulates our biology. At the core of this system is the circadian rhythm, a roughly 24-hour cycle that governs when we sleep, when we wake, when we feel alert, and when our hormones are released. This internal clock is heavily influenced by light exposure, specifically the timing, intensity, and spectrum of that light. The cells in your retina are not just there to process images. There are specialized cells, intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells, that detect light and send signals directly to the brain's master circadian clock, located in the suprachiasmatic nucleus of the hypothalamus. That clock then coordinates countless processes in the body, including the production of melatonin, the rise and fall of cortisol, body temperature metabolism, and even gene expression in almost every cell. The reason many people are waking up in the night or struggling with fragmented sleep isn't always due to stress, diet, or psychological issues. One of the most overlooked contributors is misdimmed light exposure, particularly exposure to light at the wrong times of day and a lack of light when it's most needed. When you don't get enough natural sunlight in the early part of the day and then get too much artificial light at night, your internal clock becomes confused. This leads to a misalignment between your sleep-wake cycle and the hormonal rhythms that support healthy, uninterrupted sleep. Morning light is the single most effective tool to anchor your circadian rhythm. When bright natural light enters your eyes within the first hour after waking, it triggers a series of biological events. First, it causes a sharp rise in cortisol. This is the healthy, adaptive cortisol peak that helps you feel alert and awake. This cortisol rhythm sets the tone for your energy and focus during the day. But just as importantly, it sets a timer in your brain that counts down to melatonin release about 14 to 16 hours later. That means when you get early morning sunlight, you're not just setting yourself up for more energy during the day. You're literally programming your brain to release melatonin at the right time that evening, which promotes deeper, uninterrupted sleep. When you miss that morning light or only get weak indoor light exposure, the cortisol peak may be delayed or blunted. This throws off the entire rhythm. Your body may struggle to fully wake up in the morning, and it may release melatonin too late in the evening, making it harder to fall asleep. Then, when you do finally sleep, your hormonal environment is already misaligned. Melatonin may still be rising when cortisol starts to clue early in the morning, leading to night wakings or early morning awakenings. The entire system becomes mistimed, and even if you sleep 8 hours, it doesn't feel restorative. The problem gets compounded by what happens at night. Artificial light, especially blue light from phones, tablets, TVs, and overhead lids, has a direct effect on the same retinal cells that sense morning sunlight. When these cells detect light in the evening, they send signals to the brain that it's still daytime. This suppresses melatonin production, increases alertness, and delays the onset of sleep. Even worse, if you're exposed to bright light between 10,000 p.m. and 4:00 a.m., research shows that it can cause a significant increase in cortisol. This is a complete reversal of your natural pattern. Cortisol is supposed to be low at night so the body can enter deep, restorative sleep. When it spikes due to artificial light, it disrupts sleep architecture, decreases REM and slow wave sleep, and makes you more likely to wake up during the night with a feeling of alertness or anxiety. The impact of light on sleep is not a vague or indirect effect. It is precise, powerful, and measurable. Studies have shown that just a few minutes of bright light exposure at the wrong time can shift your circadian rhythm by hours. This isn't about being sensitive. It's about biology. Our ancestors evolved under conditions where the only major source of light was the sun during the day and firelight at night. Their internal clocks were synced perfectly to the rising and setting of the sun. Today, we live in an environment where we are starved of bright light in the morning and flooded with artificial light at night. This mismatch is not just an inconvenience. It's a root cause of chronic sleep issues, hormonal imbalances, and even mood disorders. The good news is that we can use this understanding to take back control. The first step is to get outside in the morning, ideally within 30 to 60 minutes after waking. Even if it's cloudy, the light outside is exponentially brighter than indoor light. Just 5 to 10 minutes on a sunny day or 15 to 30 minutes on an overcast day can be enough to trigger that healthy cortisol rise and anchor your circadian clock. Importantly, this needs to happen through your eyes, not through windows or sunglasses, which can block the necessary wavelengths. Once your brain gets that signal, the entire body starts to operate in rhythm. In the evening, the goal is the opposite in reduced light exposure, especially blue light, starting about 2 to 3 hours before bedtime. Dimming lights, using warm tone bulbs, limiting screen time, or wearing blue light blocking glasses can all help. These actions allow melatonin to rise naturally and signal your body to prepare for sleep. A dark environment is also key throughout the night. Even small light exposures, from alarm clocks, phone notifications, or street lights leaking through curtains, can reduce melatonin and increase the chance of waking up in the middle of the night. Sleep quality isn't just about the duration of time you spend in bed. It's about the alignment of your hormones, your brain waves, and your circadian rhythm. When light exposure is timed correctly, these systems operate in harmony. When misstimed, they fall out of sync, and the result is night wakings, early fatigue, brain fog, and even immune dysfunction. All of this means that if you're struggling with nighttime awakenings, before jumping to supplements or complex protocols, you should examine your light habits. Are you getting enough bright light early in the day? Are you exposing yourself to artificial light late at night? Are you using your screens in bed? These factors are not minor. They are core drivers of your hormonal rhythm and sleep architecture. When you start aligning your light exposure with your biology, the results can feel dramatic. Sleep becomes easier to fall into, and more importantly, it becomes uninterrupted. You stop waking up at 200 a.m. with a surge of energy or anxiety. Your brain and body finally understand the messaging, it's time to rest. By respecting the timing of light, you're not just improving sleep, you're restoring balance to your entire hormonal system, from cortisol and melatonin to dopamine, insulin, and beyond. This isn't just a sleep strategy, it's a foundational principle of health. And it starts with when and how you see the light. Blood sugar, or glucose, is the body's primary source of energy, and its regulation is critical not just for physical health, but also for sleep stability. Many people assume blood sugar only matters for individuals with diabetes or metabolic disorders, but the truth is everyone experiences fluctuations in blood glucose throughout the day and night. The key is how stable or volatile those fluctuations are. When blood sugar remains steady, energy levels are consistent, mood is regulated, and sleep cycles are generally undisturbed. But when blood sugar is unstable, especially during the evening or overnight hours, it can trigger a cascade of hormonal events that disrupt sleep and lead to sudden nighttime awakenings. Understanding this relationship between blood sugar and the stress hormone system is essential for anyone looking to improve sleep quality. The body is equipped with mechanisms to prevent blood sugar from dropping too low, a condition called hypoglycemia. Even a mild dip in glucose levels during the night can be perceived as a threat by the brain. The brain relies almost exclusively on glucose for fuel, and if it senses that levels are getting too low, it reacts as if it were facing an emergency. The hypothalamus activates the sympathetic nervous system and stimulates the adrenal glands to release stress hormones, particularly cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones are designed to increase alertness and mobilize stored glucose back into the bloodstream. But their effects come at a cost. Heightened arousal, increased heart rate, and the sudden awakening that many people experience between 200 and 400 a.m., often accompanied by feelings of anxiety or restlessness. This physiological response is not psychological in nature. It's not caused by worry or stress alone. It is a biochemical signal from the body, a reaction to a perceived threat to energy supply. And in the modern context, one of the biggest contributors to this instability is the kind of meals people eat late in the day. High glycemic, carbohydrate-heavy dinners or sugary evening snacks can cause a rapid rise in blood glucose, followed by a sharp insulin response. Insulin drives glucose into cells, but when this process overshoots, blood sugar can drop too low during the night, prompting the stress response. Alcohol is another major disruptor in this process. While alcohol may seem to promote drowsiness and help people fall asleep faster, it significantly impacts glucose metabolism and sleep architecture. Alcohol inhibits gluconeogenesis, the process by which the liver produces glucose during fasting states such as sleep. This suppression means the body is less able to correct a natural dip in blood sugar. The result is a higher likelihood of hypoglycemia-induced awakenings, which are often misinterpreted as insomnia or anxiety. Additionally, alcohol fragments REM sleep, the phase most critical for emotional regulation and memory consolidation. Even people who believe they are eating healthy can experience this instability if their meal timing is inconsistent. Skipping meals during the day or fasting for long hours followed by large evening meals can disrupt glucose regulation. This pattern can lead to exaggerated insulin responses and rebound hypoglycemia during the night. Inconsistency in meal timing confuses the body's metabolic rhythm and reduces its ability to predict and prepare for changes in blood glucose levels. The brain thrives on rhythm, and when that rhythm is broken, it compensates with stress responses that interrupt sleep. Caffeine consumption also interacts with this system. Though it doesn't directly spike glucose, caffeine increases cortisol and adrenaline, which can raise blood sugar transiently and interfere with insulin sensitivity. Consuming caffeine late in the day can increase nighttime cortisol levels and amplify any glucose instability already present. This adds a second layer of stimulation that can wake you up even if your blood sugar dips only slightly. Fortunately, a stabilizing blood sugar at night doesn't require extreme diets or deprivation. It starts with making more conscious decisions about what you eat in the evening and when. Choosing meals that include a balance of protein, healthy fats, and complex carbohydrates can slow the absorption of glucose and prevent dramatic spikes and crashes. Adding fiber-rich vegetables and avoiding refined sugars at dinner helps flatten the glucose curve, reducing the chance of reactive hypoglycemia in the middle of the night. One powerful tool is a small balanced bedtime snack, especially for individuals who are prone to nighttime awakenings. This could be something as simple as a few almonds and a slice of turkey or half a banana with a spoon of nut butter. The goal is to provide a slow burning source of energy that supports stable blood sugar levels throughout the night, minimizing the chance that the brain will trigger a hormonal alert. This is not about snacking out of habit. It's a strategic intervention for blood sugar regulation. Physical activity also plays an important role. Gentle movement after dinner, like a short walk, can help increase insulin sensitivity and encourage more stable glucose levels. Mechanism: this simple habit improves glucose disposal without causing the spikes and dips associated with sedentary evenings. It helps signal the body that it is in a state of regulation and not stress, preparing the system for restful sleep. Stress management throughout the day can also support blood sugar stability. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, which raises blood glucose through a process called gluconeogenesis. If stress is unregulated, it can create a constant push-pull between insulin and cortisol, leading to volatility in blood sugar even in the absence of food. Practices like deep breathing, meditation, and non-sleep deep rest sessions can bring down baseline cortisol, reducing its impact on glucose regulation and helping the body maintain more consistent energy supply during sleep. Hydration is often overlooked in this context, but dehydration can influence glucose regulation by impairing insulin sensitivity. Ensuring you are well hydrated throughout the day supports all aspects of metabolism, including overnight blood sugar stability. However, it's best to taper water intake in the final hours before bed to avoid disruptions from nighttime urination, which itself can disturb sleep and potentially trigger a stress response. If you're waking up in the middle of the night with no clear cause, and especially if those awakenings are accompanied by racing thoughts, rapid heartbeat, or a sense of unease, there's a high likelihood that blood sugar instability is playing a role. These are not random wake-ups. They are your body's way of saying it needs help maintaining homeostasis. And the tools to restore that balance are within your reach. By making small but consistent changes to how you eat, move, and manage stress, you can train your body to keep blood sugar stable even during the long fasting hours of sleep. This isn't about being perfect or rigid. It's about respecting the biology that has been with us for thousands of years. Stable blood sugar means stable sleep, and stable sleep lays the foundation for everything else: mental clarity, physical energy, emotional resilience. When you fuel your body properly and align with its natural metabolic rhythms, you're not just avoiding nighttime wake-ups. You're building a system that knows how to take care of you while you sleep, so you can wake up to engage fully with your life. Stress is not just an emotional experience. It is a physiological state that profoundly impacts hormone levels, particularly those involved in sleep and wakefulness. When you're stressed, whether due to work, relationships, unresolved emotions, or even overexertion from training, your body doesn't just feel tension mentally. It activates a very real biological system known as the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal HPA axis. This system is responsible for releasing hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. These hormones are essential in small amounts and at the right times. They help mobilize energy, sharpen focus, and protect the body from threats. But when these hormones are elevated at night, particularly during the hours when your body is supposed to be winding down, they become one of the most common causes of sleep disruption, especially mid-sleep awakenings. When you train your body too hard, or you accumulate too much emotional or mental stress without proper recovery, the HPA axis remains in an activated state for longer than it should. Cortisol, which should begin to decline steadily in the evening, remains elevated. Adrenaline, which should be minimal while sleeping, is still circulating. These chemicals are designed to keep you alert and ready for action. So when they're present at night, they effectively block the onset and maintenance of deep sleep. Even if you fall asleep due to exhaustion, your nervous system may still be on high alert. The result is shallow sleep, more time in lighter stages of sleep, and a significantly higher chance of waking up between 100 and 400 a.m. with a sudden jolt. Heart racing, thought spinning, body tense. These are not imagined or exaggerated responses. They are the precise consequence of stress hormones flooding your system at a time they should be at their lowest. People often assume that more exercise equals more health and better sleep. But there's a limit. High-intensity training, especially when done late in the evening or without adequate recovery, sends the same signals to your body as psychological stress. It activates sympathetic nervous system dominance, the fight or flight system. If you're working out hard at 7 Guhan or 800 p.m., your body temperature, heart rate, and cortisol are still elevated by the time you try to go to sleep. That lingering elevation makes it harder to fall into deep stages of non-REM sleep, which is necessary for physical recovery, and it also disrupts the precise timing of melatonin release. Your body may still be interpreting the stress signals from your workout even hours later, leading to a delay in entering sleep or a disruption in the quality and depth of that sleep. Similarly, unresolved mental or emotional stressors activate the same pathways. Ruminating about problems, overthinking tasks, or simply carrying tension into the evening with no discharge mechanism keeps cortisol circulating. That cortisol doesn't just stay in the bloodstream. It influences brain activity, especially in areas like the amygdala, which is involved in emotional memory and fear processing. Over time, this creates a loop. Stress increases cortisol. Cortisol lightens sleep. Lighter sleep increases sensitivity to stress, and the cycle repeats. This is why people often feel like they're stuck in a pattern of poor sleep and chronic fatigue despite doing everything right during the day. They're not imagining it. Their body is trapped in a feed loop driven by hormonal imbalance. Another major factor is the timing and duration of recovery. Stress is not inherently bad. Short bursts of it, like during focused work or exercise, can be beneficial. But recovery must be deliberately built in. Most people never truly downshift their nervous system. They go from high-speed daytime activities straight into a bed, expecting the body to shift from full alertness to deep rest without transition. But the human body needs cues, clear signals that it's time to shift gears. Without those signals, the HPA axis stays partially active, and the result is either difficulty falling asleep or sudden awakenings in the middle of the night with no clear reason. Even small stressors like scrolling on a phone, watching intense content, or engaging in stimulating conversation close to bedtime can keep the brain in a state of alert. Blue light from screens also delays melatonin, but the content itself, fast-paced, unpredictable, or emotionally charged, stimulates dopamine and cortisol. This mental stimulation delays the natural processes that guide the body into sleep, and more importantly, it can lead to heightened nighttime arousals. You may find yourself waking up at 300 a.m., not because you drank too much caffeine or forgot to relax, but because your brain was too activated before bed to allow your hormonal systems to wind down properly. A chronically elevated stress state also leads to greater variability in heart rate, body temperature, and breathing patterns during sleep. These physiological markers are directly tied to the release of sleep-related hormones. When they become unstable, sleep becomes fragmented. You may move through stages of light sleep more often, with fewer sustained periods of deep non-REM REM sleep. And since these are the stages where most hormonal regulation and repair take place, their disruption means you wake up more easily and more frequently. The brain never fully disconnects from its alert state, so even small noises, temperature shifts, or internal sensations can be enough to trigger a full awakening. The good news is that this system is highly trainable. Your nervous system and hormone cycles can be shifted and realigned with consistent behavior and structured recovery. One of the most powerful tools for rebalancing nighttime stress hormones is non-sleep deep rest protocols, such as yoga nidra, slow diaphragmatic breathing, and progressive muscle relaxation. These tools actively engage the parasympathetic nervous system, signaling safety to the brain and allowing cortisol and adrenaline to drop. Done consistently in the evening, they begin to reshape the brain's response to stress, making it easier to transition into sleep and remain there uninterrupted. Another strategy is to avoid overstimulation in the 90 minutes before bed. This includes reducing bright light, avoiding screens, and minimizing emotionally intense interactions. Replacing those habits with calming routines, like reading fiction under dim light, journaling, or light stretching, can help retrain the body to associate nighttime with recovery rather than reactivity. The goal is to send clear, repeated signals to your system that it's time to power down. Over time, this consistency becomes internalized, and the stress hormones that once surged late into the night begin to fall in line, with natural circadian rhythms. It's also important to balance exercise with recovery. Strength training, cardio, or high-intensity workouts should ideally be done earlier in the day or early evening, leaving enough time for the body to return to baseline before sleep. Recovery tools like cold exposure, low-intensity movement, or even massage can help accelerate this transition. Sleep is not just the absence of activity. It's a carefully coordinated hormonal state. And when you push too hard without recovery, you push that system out of balance. Waking up in the middle of the night, again and again, is not just a matter of bad luck or poor sleep habits. It is your body speaking to you, telling you that stress hormones are dominating at the wrong times. By learning how to shift your nervous system out of fight or flight and into rest and recover, you reclaim control over this process. And when you do, you don't just sleep better, you wake up with clarity, calm, and the energy to meet your day fully, instead of carrying last night's stress into the next morning.